Hello, buddy. Welcome back to Tin Man's Quarter Channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey Tin Man Taylor, and today I'm reading another chapter out of my Bigfoot Terror Tales Vol.1. And this story is called The Lord Helps Those by Tonia Brown. And I just thought I'd let you know real quick that I might end up doing two parts to the story, but I might do that next week because I already looked through the pages and it was like 5 pages long. I'm not going to get through all that today, so I'm just going to try to skip it down in half for you. So without further ado, let's get started, shall we? Butch Lovelace had seen a Bigfoot. There was no doubt in his mind, however small it might be, that he'd seen the Sasquatch live and in person. Well, live and in Sasquatchiness, it happened one night when he was shifting hay from one field to another, getting ready for the oncoming winter. From the signs and portents, it was going to be a bad one. When he saw it, there at the edge of the fence that bordered his cow pasture stood the tallest, hairiest, ugliest thing he ever laid eyes on. Butch didn't know what to do, so he just sat there in the high seat of the deer, shining his spotlight on a surprised-looking beast who just stood still and stared at him in return. Slow as rising sap, comprehension dawned on the old farmer, and he opened his mouth and let out a strangled shout of astonishment. It sounded halfway like Bigfoot and halfway like, "Lord, help me!" Either way, Butch's cry startled the thing, and it took off like a shot into the woods beyond the field. All arms and legs and stringy hair, as the beast was, he expected it to scramble across the field willy-nilly in its effort to get under cover, but he never supposed that something so big would move so fluid and precise. It shifted in clean, easy glides as if its joints were made of pure oil, its body fueled by sheer grace. It was a wonder of nature just to watch this thing lope off toward the tree line, where it disappeared into the inky night without a hint it was ever there. Now, it didn't do his story justice that he might or might not have been a little tipsy from too much corn liquor. Yeah, a lot of people would judge you on your story if you were drinking a lot of liquor. Nor did he win any sympathy when Gertrude let it slip he was supposed to wear prescription glasses that would better suit the base of a glass soda bottle than his ugly mug. In short, no one believed him, not even his wife, but he didn't right care what others had to say on the matter. He knew what he had seen. Folks might think of Butch as a boring old coot, but he's seen lots of interesting things in his life. Yeah, just because he had a little bit to drink and was not wearing his glasses like he was supposed to, doesn't mean he did not see anything. Once he helped a heifer birth a 2-headed calf. One time he watched a lightning strike split a 10-foot spruce in two. And I'll be screaming, "Timber!" And in his heart of hearts, Butch knew he had seen a Bigfoot. He just wished he kept his fat trap shut about it. "Hey, Butch," Jimmy yelled, just as Butch was settling into his usual scat in his pew one Sunday morning. "You're going to ask the Lord to protect us from the big feats?" Oh, no, that guy's playing games with him. The usual gentleman's Sunday school crew laughed at that. Oh, yes, they had themselves a fine time at Butch's expense and had been doing just that for almost 3 weeks now. 3 weeks of poking and prodding and jousting and jesting, and Butch figured any moment now he was due to blow his top. Surely the Lord would understand if he took Jim out back and taught him a lesson in manners. With his fist, surely. It's Bigfoot, you ninny. Oh man, you just pissed him off. Butch answered instead of taking Jim out back. Ain't no such thing as big feats. That's what we've been saying, Jim shouted. Then had another good round of laughter. Jim slapped his knee and snapped his fingers. Come on now, Butch. If they's Bigfoot by themselves, what's a flock of them called? Flock, Dale asked. Sure, they don't travel in herds, or maybe schools. Joseph chimed in. Like fish? Really? Or maybe souls. Jim said they crackled. Get it? A soul of big feats. Again, everyone laughed. Butch just ignored him. He knew what he had seen. That was all that mattered. Still, if there was just a way to make other folks believe him. As it turned out, Preacher Pruitt had the answer in his sermon. The Lord helps those who help themselves. The following lesson promised to be a pleasant one, but Butch didn't hear the rest of the lecture. Instead, his mind latched onto those first 7 words, focusing on them with a surprising amount of clarity for a man who couldn't remember his own wife's birthday after 35 years of marriage. Oh, yeah, that's bad. I know people should be starting fights with you about, you forgot my birthday. He plucked those 7 words from the very air and held them under the bright church lights, turned them about, scrutinized them, discovered an answer in them that just minutes before he never hoped to find. The Lord helps those who help themselves. Butch decided the only way he was going to get folks to believe him was to help folks believe him. He had to convince Jim and the others that Bigfoot was real, and in order to do that, he had to show them what he'd seen. He had to show them a Bigfoot. Amen to that. That's the only way you can get people to believe. In a flash of inspiration, he knew just when and where and how. To save his reputation, not to mention his sanity, he had to turn them into believers, even if it meant stretching the truth a little bit in the process. Butch reckoned the Lord would forgive a little lying in the place of outright fist fighting, because if Jim kept up with his mocking, one or the other was bound to happen. After the sermon wound down and the members filed out of the church and back to their cars, Jim stopped Butch to ask, Y'all ain't still mad at me, are you? Nah, Butch said. I ain't mad. Good. 'Cause you know we're just kidding, right? Jim smiled wide. Right. You come in this house for the biggin'? It was less a question and more a plea for reassurance. Every man worth his salt as a hunter would be at Sal's feed and seed next Friday afternoon for the official start of deer season. And so would Butch, but not for the deer. No, sir, not this year. I wouldn't miss it for the world, Butch said, then smiled with Jim for the first time in weeks. A plan was forming inside his thick skull, and the more Jim grinned like a monkey at him, the more the plan seemed like an awful lot of well-deserved payback. At first he thought about ordering a costume on the internet, but that would mean employing one of his grandchildren to show him how to order the thing, and that would produce a witness. And then the costume purchase and subsequent delivery would provide a paper trail. The last thing Butch wanted was evidence of his deeds, whether in the form of people or paper. This had to work smooth and simple with no evidence that led back to him as the instigator. That is true, because if a Bigfoot don't show up and he ordered the Bigfoot costume to get somebody to go out there, act like a Bigfoot, and if people found out it was fake, oh yeah, you'd be the laughingstock for sure. The alternative was simple in theory, but proved to be a whole lot of work for just one man in 2 short weeks. All day Sunday he sorted through the various skins and pelts of animals he had trapped or hunted over a lifetime. Nothing was suitable. Nothing fit the memory of that loping, hairy giant. He needed something with long hair, not fine or silky, but a great gathering of thick knots. A bear pelt would have been perfect, but It had been a number of years since he'd seen or even shot a bear. Butch plopped onto the couch in the den and slid off his shoes to lie down for a nap when the answer appeared right under his nose. The den carpet was a throwback from Butch and Jerry's glory days, back when Gertrude was a little less conservative in her decor, and he had a little more say about what went on his own home. The result was a thick shag carpet that, by some grace of a higher authority, also happened to sport a dark brown color. Butch looked down between his bare feet and ran his toes through the gnarls of knots. Gary Alton said it was the ugliest carpet she ever seen, and he couldn't agree more. He made up some excuse about being right tired of the old carpet, so tired, in fact, he yanked it up from baseboard to baseboard without so much as an idea of what they would do for a replacement. Gertie made a few overturns like she might get mad about it, but in the end she couldn't hide her joy or her affection. Butch slept real good that night. The next few days was a flurry of clipping and sewing and gluing and stapling. For a while he worried he wouldn't be able to pull it off, that an almost retired dairy farmer wouldn't be able to create a convincing Sasquatch costume from scratch. Yet he did. After 2 weeks of hard work, not to mention avoiding Gertrude and her ever-prying eyes, he was done. The Thursday before the big day, he drew his weary body to full height, pulled on the poorly constructed but paceable mask. It consisted of a squashed metal bucket with some holes punched through and the carpet glued all around, and stepped back to take a look in the bathroom mirror. By and by, if he didn't look sort of like the thing, not a lot, mind you, but just enough to fool Jim and the others. Perhaps if it was dark enough and he was a good distance off from his intended target, he reckoned he could just about pass for a Sasquatch. Yes, this was going to work. And plus, you save a little bit of money of not ordering a Bigfoot costume. I never even thought about that, taking old carpet and turning it into Bigfoot costume. Hey, anything works now, right? Instead of buying fur by the yard, you know. The first day of hunting season arrived with all the appropriate fanfare that a small mountain town could heap up such an event. Butch packed the truck to the brim with his gear, said his farewells to Gertie, and set off for Sal's. As usual, all the men of the town were there, as well as a few young ladies who forsook the duties of home to take upon themselves the work of men. Some of the fellows scoffed at this addition, but Butch was nothing if not tolerant. He wouldn't mind giving the young girls as much of a scare as the old boys. Yep, everyone was going to get their come-uppance tonight. Butch and the fellers got their paperwork in order, stocked up on bullets and beer, then headed deep into Dale's back 40 to camp and drink and shoot at whatever moved. They set up camp in the same place as always, the base of the hillside, just at the edge of a small brook. It took the better part of the day to get everyone settled in, and after pitching 4 tents and drinking 3 cases of beer between them, they all decided to leave off hunting for the first night. Meanwhile, Butch had been pouring his beer in the bushes all night and making sure the others got good and soused. "Well, boys," Butch said once the others started to sway with drink, "I think I'm going to turn in for the night." "What?" Jim said. "You can't go to bed. We just got started. I'm an old man. Let me get my sleep." "You won't get none," Joshua said. "We're going to be at it all night." The others hollered their agreement. Jim even hollered his. "You can have all night," Butch said. "I'm going to lay down a bit." "But what if that big feet's come about and you ain't here?" Dale asked in a drunken slur. The boys kicked up their heels laughing. Butch narrowed his eyes at Dale. What makes you think that? Dale, sleepy eyed and red nosed, shrugged. Why not? You got a monopoly on some squatches. They don't know how to pronounce Sasquatch, I tell you. The man never could hold his liquor. Butch ignored the jab and stomped to his tent, leaving the heat of the fire and embarrassment behind him. Let them laugh it up. Let them have their moment. They wouldn't be laughing no more once the whole town thought they were as crazy as him. After going through the motions of retiring, Butch cut his lantern and lay awake in the dark, waiting at it all night. He knew better. The only thing men his age could rightly claim to be at all night anymore was staring at the inside of their eyelids. Sure enough, the boys dropped off one by one, crawling back to their tents to sleep off the first drunk of hunting season. When the final zipper sealed the last tent, Butch leaped into action, rising from his tent to gather and empty everyone's guns. The last thing he wanted was to be mistaken for a deer or a bear and get himself a belly full of buckshot. Yeah, I heard to see on the news. Man gets killed for being mistaken as Bigfoot. By the time they realized what he was supposed to be and what kind of prize bagging him would fetch, he planned on being long out of the costume and back in his tent. No time to load the weapons and give chase when the mysterious beast had simply vanished into the night. Butch grabbed his homemade Sasquatch skin and hiked a little bit up the hill, which he supposed was really the crest of some unnamed mountain. A plump harvest moon dominated the clear night sky, full of seriousness and bright light, both of which served his purpose. When he reached the top, he slid into the costume, amazed at how easy the whole plan had been to execute thus far. I'm going to stop it right here and continue next week. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on post notifications for more book reading videos like this. This has been another successful installment of the Tin Man's Corner channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey Tin Man Taylor. I say that's a wrap, and have a nice day, y'all.